Royce Watkins from Your Black World, and it's kind of late today, but I had a thought that I wanted to share with you real quick about something that I saw in the media that really gave me a moment of pause. You saw that Rand Paul, one of the candidates for president of the United States, he brought out the fact that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton's husband, was largely responsible for the mass incarceration of many, many African American men. In case you haven't seen the stories, there is an astronomical and very disturbing number of black men that have been taken out of the community who've been put into prison. It's not because they didn't break the law. Some of them did. Many of them broke the law on drug-related crimes, but many of them were sentenced far disproportionately to the magnitude of the offense. And in case you don't know, going to prison or getting caught up in the criminal justice system, it's a life sentence for most people, especially black men, because once you go to prison, you are pretty much wiped out from society. You have a very difficult time of getting back into the job market. It's very difficult to get an education. There are a lot of places you can't live, a lot of things you can't do. So basically, you have been destroyed socially as a result of having been caught up in this system. Now, this has a spillover effect on the black community that's been huge. It's absolutely destroyed the sociological ecosystem of the black community. It's broken down the black family unlike anything you can ever imagine. When you're incarcerating so many parents, you cannot expect the children to grow up normal. The war on drugs, I talked to Michelle Alexander, the author of The New Jim Crow, recently. We text back and forth periodically. And one of the things that Michelle and I agreed upon, she wrote an article about it as well, is that there should actually, if you want to talk about a reparations conversation, which I think the conversation should never go away, there should be reparations not just for slavery and for Jim Crow, but also for the war on drugs, which was a deliberate war on black people. You saw things like I know a guy who dealt some cocaine, but it was a first-time nonviolent offense. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't have any murders on his record anyway. And they took him down on a conspiracy charge. They incarcerated him. They gave him 15 life sentences. They incarcerated his mother, his sister, and his brother. His name was Mario Lloyd. He was out of Chicago. And the interesting thing is that his children suffered the consequences of the fact that they didn't have parents anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that what they did was okay. I mean, it's not okay to sell drugs. We know that. But it also begs the question of whether or not the punishment fits the crime. That's the issue. The issue is not whether or not people that go to prison have broken the law. The fact is, a lot of people break the law. George W. Bush broke the law many, many times. He used cocaine. He was an alcoholic. And got into drunk driving accidents. He did do a lot of things that were illegal over the course of his life, but he never did the kind of prison time he would have done as a black man. That's why I wrote my book, What If George Bush Were a Black Man?, to really highlight the hypocrisy that exists in our society, where you have a small margin of error for black men, where we make one tiny mistake at an early age. You break the law at the age of 17, somebody wants to lock you up and throw away the key. But with the little white kid, when he goes into the court of law, the judge is more sympathetic. They say, well, he did something wrong and he should be punished, but he's got his whole future ahead of him, and as long as he serves his sentence, he can go on about his life and he's going to be okay. The other farce with the whole war on drugs was that the United States actually wasn't really fighting the war on drugs. That's why it didn't work. They were actually letting cocaine be imported from Central America by the boatload, by these drug dealers literally bringing in thousands. I mean, they were negotiating with these cartels in Central America so they could fight an illegal war with the Contras in Nicaragua. So they pretty much allowed them only to bring their drugs into black communities. So what they were doing was they were letting the drugs in through the front door, and to give the perception that they were fighting the war on drugs, they were locking up tons and tons of black men by the boatload. But black people were looking around like, where did all this cocaine come from? Where did this crack epidemic come from? We don't make crack in our neighborhood. Somebody's bringing this in here. We don't make AK-47s in our neighborhood. Somebody's bringing these in here. Well, people were making money by commodifying the black family and commodifying the black male and commodifying the black community. That's what they were doing. They were getting rich off of us by basically running our men through the mill like KFC chickens. So now you built this bloated, massive prison industrial complex. It only worsened, and this is where I get to the first black president, Bill Clinton. He wasn't no damn first black president. Never let anybody tell you Bill Clinton was the first black president. I was annoyed when people used to say that. The man ain't black. He's not a bad man, but he ain't black, and he certainly didn't help the black community, at least when it comes to incarceration. And Bill Clinton himself has admitted that he incarcerated too many black people back in the 1990s with his three strikes law. Basically, among other things, he did other things as well, mandatory minimums, things like that. I want to make sure I get that right, but I know that there was the Sentence Reform Act in the 1980s. And I think that might have established the mandatory minimums. But I know that Bill Clinton pushed forward with the three strikes law and did some other things that led to massive amounts of incarceration. And so here's the thing. So now that Hillary's coming back to the black community begging for votes, she's going to be in your church tap dancing and eating fried chicken and telling you how much she loves you and how much she loves Anita Baker and Patti LaBelle and all this so that you will become, once again embrace her and vote for her. That's what they do with black people. They don't respond to us as an intelligent voting bloc. They respond to us as an emotional voting bloc. That if you get black people to like you emotionally, they'll come out and support you. Also, you have to scare black people. You scare them by telling them that the Republicans are so racist that the Republicans are going to put you back in chains. They're going to destroy you. So you got to vote for Democrats because we'll protect you. That's a form of bullying, almost like a mob boss. A mob boss does that too. He says, look, pay me for protection, or when these other people get a hold of you, you're done. Or good cop, bad cop. You better give me what I want, because if this guy gets a hold of you, you're going to be done. And I think that you have to be thoughtful about sort of falling for these sorts of tactics, because they're used repeatedly and they're absolutely ignorant. But they work. They work on a lot of people, and that's why they keep doing it. Another thing that comes to mind is in terms of what the Democrats like to do. What's the other thing? Oh, the other thing they like to do. Here's the other thing. Pay attention to this during the presidential election. Democrats tend to come around and be very sensitive to black people, typically when it's time to get elected and they want to stand up for your voting rights. They want to defend your voting rights. So what they'll do is they'll go to churches and they'll invoke all this emotional imagery, and they'll say things like, well, when we marched in Selma, people died so that we could have the right to vote. We're not going to let the Republicans take away your right to vote. Well, think about that for a second. Why do you think they care so much about protecting your voting rights? It's because they want you to show up and vote for them. They want you, basically they're saying, look, gas up my car so I can drive down the street and take care of somebody else. Because once they get you to get all caught up and emotional about protecting your voting rights, you give them the black vote. We don't ask for anything as a collective because we're told that that's bad, especially when Obama was elected. We were told that we weren't supposed to ask for anything, even though gay people were asking for stuff, Latinos were asking for stuff, women's groups were asking for stuff. Everybody was asking for something except for us, but we'll put that to the side for now. And they will use this power to serve other people. They ignore the black community for the most part. That's what the Democratic Party has pretty much done. Because really, when you break it all down, they're pretty much a bunch of rich people from Harvard and Yale, and they all kind of hook each other up. That's what they do, and they all serve the corporations more than they serve you. They're not as sensitive to black people because we don't have as much money as wealthy white donors or wealthy white corporations. Now, with that being said, let's go back to Bill Clinton. Let's talk about this incarceration thing. So Rand Paul brings up this issue about Bill Clinton incarcerating what he calls a generation of young black men, which is absolutely true. There was the New York Times story saying that 1.5 million black men are missing from the black community. I would say the number is higher than that, especially when you consider the men that have been affected by those men. When you're mentored by a man who is either absent or incapable of being an effective mentor, that affects you as well. And that also affects all of us, because then black women reach the age of 26, 27. They're looking around. Where's my husband? Where's my husband? Maybe I can marry Pookie, who lived down the street, because he and I were really close. Where's Pookie? Well, Pookie's in jail. Maybe Pookie's unemployed. Maybe Pookie's just got a criminal record. Maybe Pookie's been caught up in this very toxic culture that's been created in hip-hop, which has been hit by the prison culture. Russell Simmons and I talked about this a lot when we were doing our campaign against mass incarceration, which the Obama administration wasn't exactly the most helpful on. They were not exactly receptive to the idea of doing anything on this issue, because they're not receptive to the idea of black people asking for anything that reflects their rights. So we talked about this, and the fact is, and I think Russell cared about this issue because he's got a lot of friends up at Rikers Island who were sent away for decades or 10, 15 years over a bag of weed, over the tiniest things. And it's funny because somebody will say something like, well, you know what? If you didn't want to go to prison, you shouldn't have broke the law. You shouldn't have got caught with drugs. Well, my thing is, like, if you want to find drug possession, go to a college campus on a Friday night. When I taught at Syracuse University for 13 years, we were notorious for producing as many alcoholics and drug addicts as we did college graduates. But I never once, ever once, not in all those years I was there, saw that campus get raided by the police. But yet you have programs like Stop and Frisk where you're stopping and questioning all the black men on the street in certain parts of New York City and across the country. These programs lead to greater police interactions, which lead to an increased likelihood that you're going to have a bad interaction with a cop, which increases the likelihood you're going to be arrested, which increases the likelihood that you're going to be put on trial, which increases the likelihood that you're going to actually be convicted, which increases the likelihood that you're going to be sent to prison, which increases the likelihood that you're going to go through all the unnamed tortures that occur in prison. Everything from the abuse to the violence to the prison rape. See, it's funny, rape advocates, they talk all day about sexual assault on college campuses, but they don't have a damn thing to say about all of the people being raped every day right now in prison. If you don't care about prison rape, then you don't care about rape. I'm sorry, because prison rape is far worse than any other kind of rape. Because in prison, you don't get justice. You can't go to the cops about being raped because people are going to say, "Well, you're a bad person, and if you weren't a bad person and didn't go to prison, you wouldn't be getting raped." They think you deserve whatever you get. Prison rape is also bad because not only do the police not help you, but your assailant is going to be looking at you at breakfast the next morning. And then he might assault you again and again and again and again and again, like the story about the brother who did 30 years in prison over a crime he did not commit and was raped repeatedly and given HIV over those 30 years, even though prosecutors knew a year later that somebody else committed the crime. They just didn't give a damn enough to go back and review the case to find out that who should be in prison and who shouldn't. They sent both of them to prison, and they didn't let this man out. So he spent over 30 years in prison, away from his newborn daughter, and caught HIV, went through untold amounts of trauma and all these nightmares, and then you put these men through this kind of stuff, and then you dump them back into the black community. How dare you? That is a Holocaust that is far worse than anything that happened in Nazi Germany. I'm sorry. Everybody wants to remember what happens to the Jews, and we should. That was horrible, but it lasted about 6 years max, maybe 7 if you want to stretch it. Our Holocaust has lasted for 400 years, and it's affected hundreds of millions of people. So, here's my thing about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and all this other stuff with the drugs and all this and the incarceration. I don't forgive Bill Clinton for this. I don't forgive him for this. I don't care how often you apologize. I don't care how much you try to make amends, because I know your wife is trying to get elected, so maybe that's your play. You're trying to admit that you made this mistake so that people will say, "Oh, well, if I vote for Hillary and put her back in office, then she can correct the wrong or right the wrong that was done by her husband many years ago." That's going to be the play, in my opinion. That's what I think that they're going to try to do. I'm not going for it. I'm not falling for any of this. I'm not voting for either the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm going to vote for an independent candidate, first and foremost. I'm not telling you what you need to do, but I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the W.E.B. Du Bois route. Actually, W.E.B. Du Bois was actually saying we shouldn't vote, because when we're presented with a Democrat and a Republican, two really bad options, that's not a choice. That is not a choice. That is not freedom. That is somebody giving you the illusion of a choice, but it's not really a choice. So rather than doing what Du Bois talked about of just not voting at all, I say, okay, if you want to vote, fine, vote. But I'm going to vote for an independent candidate. I'm not voting for none of this bullshit. Excuse my French. The other thing, too, I'm tired of hearing white people going back and giving these sort of honest reflections on what they did wrong, how they are finally willing to admit after 20, 30 years of abusing the hell out of us with this horrifically bloated prison system, because they're making money off you, by the way. I'm tired of them sort of talking about it in an academic context without understanding that many of the people that you locked up are still in prison right now. They're still in prison right now. Mario Lloyd, who was incarcerated in 1988 when his newborn daughter was 2 and given 15 life sentences for a drug charge, is still in prison right now. He's done 28 years or something like that in prison. I'm not doing the math right now because I'm so mad. He's done all these decades in prison, and people are acting like he's not still there anymore. Like, oh, well, we made a big mistake. We put too many people in prison, so, well, I guess we just won't do it anymore. No, you don't say you won't do it anymore. You fix the wrong that you committed many years ago. You fix it. You form Obama. If you really give a damn about black people, here's what you do. You form a massive commission as big as it needs to be. I'm talking about if it's got to be hundreds of scholars and experts and attorneys, you give them $2, $3, $4 billion to do a mass examination of the entire criminal justice system, review every case, every situation, every person, to see if that individual should have the right to come home to his family. Because you're not dealing with KFC chickens, you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with human beings who have hopes and dreams, and they have a right to freedom that you're always talking about on TV. You're always talking about people in America having the right to freedom, but for some reason, you are forgetting about these millions of people, most of whom are black, who have no access to freedom whatsoever, who are being abused on a daily basis, who are being tortured right here on American soil. America has an addiction to mass incarceration. We incarcerate more of our citizens than any country on the entire planet. So every time somebody tries to say that the United States is some beacon of freedom and justice and compares us to other countries like, oh, North Korea, oh, Iran, oh, these other countries that don't have the freedoms that we claim to have here, understand, they don't incarcerate as many of their citizens as we do on a per capita basis or an aggregate basis. Also understand that the majority of the citizens that we incarcerate in the U.S., they're disproportionately black and brown. So you have invoked a Holocaust in the entire black community, and you are talking about it now. You're admitting that the war on drugs was failed. You're admitting that mass incarceration is a failed policy. You're admitting that Bill Clinton put too many people in prison, but you're forgetting that many of these people are still locked up, that these cases need to be reviewed. I'm getting sick and tired of us responding to all the little roaches that crawl out of the wall and killing them one by one. These little cases that pop up, at least 2 a week. Watch the media. Every week, there's 1 or 2 cases where there's some man, usually it's a black man, where they say, oh my goodness, 30 years ago, he actually was incarcerated for something he didn't do. He was 20 years old. He had hopes and dreams, just like your little Harvard ass had. But you took all that away because you kept him in prison from the age of 20 to 50. So what do? You let him out, you apologize, you say, how could this have happened? And you act like it's an isolated incident until it happens again a couple of days later. So you're literally, again, it's like being in a house where you're seeing roaches crawl out of the wall one by one, and you're killing each roach as they come out and saying, ooh, I can't believe we had a roach in our house. But you don't understand that when you see a trail of 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 roaches coming out of the wall, it means you probably have a few thousand roaches in the walls, and you need to exterminate en masse. You need to do something en masse that is going to deal with the roach problem that is in your house. Our criminal justice system is the roach problem that is in our house of justice. If you care about this issue, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, any of these white people on TV talking about this stuff like it's some sort of academic exercise, it's not an academic exercise for many of us who have relatives who have been tortured by this system. I have relatives who've gone to prison and been raped. I have relatives who've had their freedoms stolen from them, their joy, their future, their families taken away from them by this system. For all these white people on TV who talk about this like this is some sort of academic exercise, stop it. Just stop it. If you're not going to do something about it, then don't talk about it. President Obama, God bless you. You're the first biracial president. I'm happy. That's really cool for you and Michelle and the dog. God bless you for that. No disrespect, no hatred. But the fact is that you did make promises, sir, back in the day that you were going to address this issue and deal with this. You have the power with your pen. You can sign an executive order right now today that would change the lives of 100,000 people. You could form a massive commission to review thousands of cases and see who should remain in prison and who should get a chance to come home. The reason that you're not doing it is because A, we lack the political will. 2, we don't give a damn about black people. We still don't see black people as human. If these were white people being tortured like this, we'd be all up in arms about it. We'd be all upset because somehow we believe in the rights of white people to have hopes and dreams, but not of black people. And the third reason we don't do it is because right now we've got to the point where we've become so horrifically addicted to this mental illness of wanting to incarcerate people that we're now making money from it. We now have an economy built around slavery. I'm not going to call it modern day slavery because slavery is slavery. The fact is the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution does not abolish slavery entirely. It has the fine print. Go read the fine print on the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and you will see that it says that in the United States slavery is abolished unless you have been labeled a felon, unless you've been convicted of a crime. So at that point, the system allows for you to be a slave, and it's not a coincidence that the majority of these slaves happen to be black. It comes right from the original slavery that America instituted over the first 250 years of its existence. So that's all I want to say about this. So, Bill Clinton, I hear what you're saying, man. I'm glad you're admitting that you falsely incarcerated tens of thousands of Americans, which is one of the which I would say maybe makes you guilty of one of the great crimes against humanity of all time. But brother, it don't matter if you're talking about it. It doesn't matter if you're admitting to it, because remember, these people are still in prison. Their children are still waiting for them to come home. They're still being tortured every single day. They're still being beaten to death in prison by guards and by other inmates. They're still getting raped repeatedly, over and over again, in the prisons that you built to incarcerate people, most of whom are black and brown. So if you're not going to do something about it, then don't talk about it. That's all I want to say. I'm done. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. And I'm sorry to be emotional, but this is real stuff. This is not academic. This is not a fluffy conversation. This is real stuff that we have to really deal with. And as we move forward in this 2016 election, I encourage people, don't fall for the bullshit. Make sure that when you evaluate these politicians, don't let them play you and manipulate you like they always do, bringing buckets of chicken and all kinds of nonsense to get your vote. Make them earn your vote. I don't care who you vote for. Just make sure they earn your vote. That's all I want to say. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.